Hello and welcome to the Storied Arcs podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike.
And I'm your co-host, Alex.
And today we are doing a special episode. This is not tied to a particular comic or story. However, a few weeks ago, we did a preview of Lexington Comic and Toy Convention, otherwise known as LexCon, which we have attended for years, and this year we attended again. So we were saying, you know, here's what it's been like in the past. Here's what we love about the show, the accessibility of it, yada, yada, yada. So now that we've been, we just wanted to check back in and say, you know, here's what happened. And I think big takeaway, which is 2 days from now, you'll hear, we did an interview in person with Matthew Roberts, first live interview we've ever done, which was a fun audio challenge for me. It's not going to be our standard, you know, podcasting mics, quiet rooms and things like that. There's a lot of background noise, but I think you can still hear everything and it's all worth hearing. But yeah, I mean, like, when I think of Lexington LexCon, I'm just going to call it that to shorten for now. When I think of LexCon, I think, you know, I'm in Cincinnati, 90-minute drive, you know, unless there's traffic or a bathroom stop or something like that, 90-minute drive. You basically pull in right next to the convention center. It's Rupp Arena. And there's a huge flat parking lot. There's also parking garages because you're right in the heart of it there. And because there's ample parking, you're not paying $50 a car, which
that's the real big thing. It's one thing to be in a city on a known convention or a known event day or weekend, and you know, you always assume at that point, most places, like in Cincinnati, if there's a big convention, there's plenty of parking downtown or like a convention center, but all the stuff within like 3 or 4 blocks is going to be like $25-$30 because they'll do the all day thing, right? Because most places it's an hour, hourly or whatnot. But if it's a convention weekend, you pay an all day rate because they know they can get away with that. And I will say, Lexington is super accessible. It is easy to get in and out. There's always, driving in, there's a place to park. You're not going to get, at least last handful of years, you're not going to get absolutely assaulted by some obscene parking cost. It's easy to get to. I will say that there always tends to be a little confusion in terms of where to enter. I always see that you enter at a very specific spot, which every con wants to have that. You want the flow of traffic to go a certain direction. Maybe a few more signs on the opposite side of the arena.
The opposite side where like those doors where you go in and then there's the escalator, because in past years I have been allowed to go in there. Every year since then, I watched people in costume pulling on those doors. Like, what gives? This looks like a main entrance. But I'm like, here's the clue for you. There's no people on the inside of that door.
Yes, but the reason is because that is the front entrance of the convention center. Like,
I see. So if you're like a UK basketball fan and you're used to entering there,
when you see a picture of the convention center in Rupp Arena, it's a big, high, glass window. It's the front of the building, quote unquote, and you actually enter on the backside. So you always see some confusion about that, and there are people who walk in, talk to a security guard, then look around like where I'm supposed to go, and they point and walk up the hill that way. So that'd be one minor note there, but that's simply getting around the convention center. But I think once you're inside, I think you got there a little earlier than I did. I got to the show a little bit late, which is unusual for me. But you didn't have to wait super long and not in a super long line before they let you in, right?
No, I will say this has never been a problem in the past. You and I tend to be early arrivers, especially this time around with the press pass. I was kind of pushed to the front of the line so that I could go in as soon as doors were open. Not early access, but as soon as the doors open. Had that not been the case, I did notice that the line they would have put me in was out, like all the way out the building, like outside. Okay. Because they used to kind of do a circle around the thing and then open all the doors and everyone would just flood in. So it didn't used to matter where you were in line. I'm not sure if they did that this time. But I was thinking, man, I only wore like a light windbreaker and it was like 45 degrees outside.
Chilly.
I'm really glad I did not wait 30 minutes outside beforehand, but that's on me. I just assumed, like, I've never waited outdoors at LexCon before, so I didn't think I would be. And there's nothing worse than carrying around a really heavy coat or jacket at a
Inside,
crowded
yeah.
convention. That's the one that I encounter every December at the GalaxyCon in Columbus because it's December. I'm wearing a winter coat and carrying a bag of books and stuff like that. Once you're inside the convention center, it's quite warm, especially as more and more people show up. Then you're
Yeah,
carrying around a clunky, heavy coat.
they got a coat check, I think. Bag
That's true.
check, I think.
I didn't want to pay for it. But
Yeah.
anyway, once you're inside,
Yeah.
and you I don't think you had a bad experience arriving just after the show started, because then there's no waiting. You just go straight in. And
Yeah.
the creators, the comic creators, which are what we're all about, were pretty close to the center and pretty close to, like, you get your ticket, you walk in, and right in front of you was Jay Lee. And that's how it starts.
That's always a thing, as someone who's gone to a significant number of cons over the past, we'll call it about almost 10 years. Show layout, floor layout is always a thing I pay attention to, and specifically where do they put the creators, the comic creators, and where do they put the celebrities? Because those are going to be your highest traffic areas, and how does the flow of traffic work? And here at Lexington, at least, I want to say it's mostly been this way in the past, but you're right. Right when you walk in, what you'll call the main center aisle, where they direct everyone into the show. That main aisle, or if not that first one, one or two on either side, that is the main creator artist alley. Artist alley spreads all the way through, but in terms of your featured creators, they typically put them right there in the front. So when you walk in, that first aisle, you're looking down to the back of the show floor is going to be a line of featured creators, and you're going to have two or three, two or three kind of aisles right there, which makes it really convenient again for us, since that's the thing that we go and are most interested in. So to have that be right in front of you and not have to hunt for it, which I've been to show at times where you walk in and if you don't have like a floor map, you're just kind of, I walk in and look around and just try to figure out, like, is there a sign for Artist Alley?
And you're tall enough to see over everyone generally. I don't know if you ever run into Dikembe Mutombo at a show. He might block your view, but other than that, I think you have an advantage over most of us.
It is nice to not have to hunt for it, because oftentimes I would say most shows either put your featured creators, when it comes to creators and celebrities, again, the things they know are high traffic areas, they either put them way to one side, like on one edge or one side, to kind of concentrate the traffic in one area, or put them where they feel they have the most space, where kind of the widest alleys would be, like right in the front. When they kind of get mixed in with with kind of other booths there, and it's a little more dispersed and spread out, that's when it can be a little tough to track kind of where people are, where guests are. You have a lot of people asking, "Hey, have you seen this person? Where's this person's booth?" I don't think that's the kind of thing you want to have. You like to have them, all your kind of featured guests, whether they're, again, celebrities or creators or whatnot, like to keep them concentrated in one area. So the people that are there looking for them know that, hey, if I don't see the person I'm looking for right away, if I see someone else on the featured list, I know I'm in the right area. At the very least, at least I found the right couple aisles, and down at Lexington, it's right there in the front.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about who we saw. And I guess, were there any creators where, again, you go to lots and lots of shows, creators, this was your first time seeing them, with the huge caveat that regrettably Scott Hanna's not able to make it. He had the flu, and the All Reds missed their flight, and their rescheduled flight got canceled. And
like I said, the All Reds had a multitude of travel snafus over the weekend. If you're in the U.S. at this time listening to this, trouble at airports, kind of in the news. But yeah, they missed on Friday and weren't there, and then canceled on Saturday. And there's some thought like, oh, maybe they would arrive later in the day, possibly. And then at some point it becomes untenable, where it's like, well, if they do show up and it's 4:30, 5 o'clock, and they're going to be here for a couple of, like, it's almost like, is that even worth it making the trip? Which is a huge bummer. The All Reds were definitely high on the list of creators I wanted to see, because I had never seen them before. So again, that was a super big bummer. But outside of that, the folks that were there, we did get to see. If you go back and listen to our preview episode from a couple weeks back, CF Villa, Carlos Fabian Villa, who was a major big time current Marvel artist, had just wrapped up a run as the main interior guy on the Avengers, written by Jen McKay. I had a bunch of stuff from him for him. It was great to see him. Some of the kind of the older guard guys like David Michelini, Roy Thomas, Pat Broderick, guys who none of them I had seen before. Howard Chaykin was there. I'm blanking on a name here. Bob Hall. I'd seen them before at shows, so it was good to see, kind of pass by them again. Ron Mars I'd seen before as well. Got a book signed by him. But just getting to see, again, I think we talked about in the preview, the mix of kind of the previous generation, which is kind of the borderline silver, Bronze Age, 70s into the 80s stuff, melding into our modern day.
Including up and comers.
They call it plastic age, which is weird. Well, let's say
right.
Modern big time, and then a lot of also independent, kind of newer voices as well. So
yeah, and one guy I want to shout out to, because I really enjoyed interacting with him and his work, was Ben Sears, who I had a variant of Kaya that he had done, Kaya, I think that's how you say that book's name.
It's the Wes Craig book.
And so he did a variant for number 30. That was like one of his only credits on League of Comic Geeks, and I brought it to him. And I was like, yeah, how much do you want for a signature? He's like, no one's ever asked me to sign a book before. I was like, great. Since I always do this, if somebody's giving free signatures, I buy something at the table. And I bought a couple of his self-published comics, and they're really great. I mean, I really enjoyed them, and was like, oh, I would love to talk to this guy more. And I had the same experience last year. A slightly more established was Matt Lesniewski. It's a lot. It's like 12 letters in his last name. Lesniewski. He did Faceless in the Family.
Lesniewski, one of those. Yeah, I think so.
But I had discovered his at his booth. He did not charge to sign my Faceless in the Family, but he was selling his self-published books, and I bought one of those, and that was actually, I liked that more than the book I brought to get signed. So and nothing, not a knock against Faceless in the Family, which, by the way, is getting picked up for a second volume now. It's just always cool to meet someone who's on the front end, especially, I think I referenced this in the preview episode of having recently read the Jeff Lemire 10,000 Ink Stains, everything it takes to become a comic artist, standing at Kinko's Tuesday night, hand printing and collating and stapling little booklets that your local comic shop begrudgingly agreed to put by the register and no one will buy. And that's a little bit what this table was like, but some people's table presentation is just off the charts. His was a beautiful setup. The winner is always Chris Schweitzer. He has the big cutout booth, and all of his stuff just ornately and beautifully arranged. Also just, super nice guy with Chris Schweitzer.
Yeah, it's always great to see Chris. We've seen him at a handful of shows, especially in the area. Always great to talk with him and see kind of the cool stuff he has. His art style is so super neat, and so it's so different and specific to him, and he does so much stuff locally in the area because he's from the area. So there's a lot of stuff in the area, being the kind of the larger greater Appalachian region of the Midwest area ish. But he's always great to talk to, always great to see. It was interesting. I was very glad to, I mentioned some of the kind of the older guard that was at the show, and getting to see Roy Thomas was great. Roy Thomas, again, legendary creator. I would say mostly known for his Marvel stuff, but known all over. And very specifically, he was the writer on Star Wars #1. The adaptation that came
Okay.
back out
Yeah.
in '77. And he made a comment when I handed my book to him, which was early on Saturday. He made a comment that he had been seeing a lot of Star Wars that weekend, like more than normal at a show. And I know I just throwing it out there. I thought maybe because both him and Howard Chaykin were in Lexington. Howard Chaykin is a longtime artist as well, who he was the artist on that adaptation. And now I had gotten Howard's signature on my issue of Star Wars #1 a handful of shows ago, maybe a couple years back. So I wasn't in line to see him get him this show, but I thought maybe the fact that both of those guys were there, and it is a notable book that the two of them worked together, as to why maybe it would have been seeing more Star Wars than normal. But that was really great for me personally to have that book signed by both Roy Thomas and previously Howard Chaykin, to kind of wrap that one up and say that's like that's a completed issue in my mind. Have that Star Wars #1, have that signed, which was that was really, really cool. I was really glad that someone like Roy Thomas made it. He made his way out to Lexington to be at the show that weekend.
Yeah. Another one was Arvell Jones, who is going back to the old school era of creators. But he was sitting there wearing a Detroit Lions cap, and I was like, oh, are you like? I consider that relatively local. I think living in Detroit, going down to Kentucky feels a little further. Whereas in Cincinnati, I'm like,
state.
Technically, we're a bordering state.
Technically, we're adjacent states. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like when Cincinnati gets called a Great Lakes region. I'm like, Ohio is Cincinnati's in Ohio by extension. Technically, on a technicality, yes, we are a Great Lakes a state/city. But anyway, really, really nice guy. I had like some old Avengers books and an old Daredevil that I had him sign, and just really, really enjoyed that conversation. And, I think a lot of times I get the better conversation from the guys who have been around the block a few times. I had a really long talk with oh boy, now I'm blanking on his name, and let me see. I'll see if I can find it. I had him, Pat Broderick. He was telling me about how he had lost his entire personal collection in a flood in Florida, and was sitting there, like the books I brought him. One was, a Batman Year 3 book, which I'm sure he signed 1 billion of, and he just signed it and handed it back. But there was a Flash book from the original Barry Allen run toward the end of the run that he had worked on with the Human Torch in it. And he was really proud of his, or not the Human Torch, the
Firestorm.
Firestorm. Yeah. And
Firestorm. Yeah. Sorry.
Firestorm, the nuclear man. Yeah. Which was really intricate pencil work and all this other stuff. But he was sitting there like taking pictures of it with his phone and sending it to people while the line behind me was like piling up, and he was just talking about this issue. And I was like, honestly, dude, if you want it, you can have it. Like that, if it means that much to you. And he's like, no, after having parts of my collection stolen from, storage areas over the years, and then losing it all in a flood, he's like, I'm not keeping any physical comics anymore. I was like, that's deeply sad to me, but also I get it. But anyway, really nice
Pat
guy.
Briefly was great. Yeah, he was great. I had an issue. I had Tim Drake's first appearance, which I had signed by Marv Wolfman many, many, many years ago, with an iconic cover by George Perez, who I did not get a chance to get signed by, which super regret not being able to get that. But getting Pat Broderick, who was a penciler on that, co-creator of The Best Robin, was very, very cool. One of the things that I always secretly love to do, because this is the comic hipster in me, is when you can bring an issue to a creator that they haven't seen yet or haven't seen before, never signed before. I always get a kick out whenever I can do that. Managed to do that a couple of times at this show. one situation out of circumstance, and one because I actually got an issue they didn't see very often. The first being Chris Campana, who has done a number of covers over at Marvel and whatnot. I think he draws a great Spider-Man, which I mentioned to him, and he definitely has a hard time taking a compliment, because what he said was, anytime he would draw Spider-Man, he would look at it and be like, "Oh, this is terrible," because it doesn't look like the Spider-Man I knew growing up. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, so you're not John Romita. It's fine. It's okay. You draw a good Spider-Man. He draws a great dynamic looking Spider-Man, but Amazing Spider-Man, he had a variant issue, it was a ratio variant that came out the Wednesday before the show. And our shop, which I love and adore a lot, they're not super into the ratio variant game, which I respect, because playing that game is generally losing a proposition. So if they have a variant cover, it isn't because they bought enough issues just to get the variant cover. If they have a ratio cover, it's because they bought enough, they ordered enough, and it allowed them to order the variant. You know what I'm saying? Like, the variant doesn't wag the dog in this case, which some shops do. So I was not anticipating seeing that Campana variant, which is a 1 in 25. I was not anticipating seeing that at the shop the Wednesday at our shop before the show, and was prepared to go to one of the other shops in the area that I was fairly confident would have it. But lo and behold, it was there. So I had to buy it, and got to walk up to Chris's booth on Saturday and hand it to him, and he was like, "Oh, right, was this week?" I hadn't seen it yet, and it's like I know I like when I get to do that, especially when it's a book that comes out, literally a couple days before the convention happens. That's happened a few times in my life, and I like that. The other interaction I really enjoyed was with Jamal Igle. He did a variant cover for an Ahoy book called Ancestral Recall, which is a really interesting book, kind of dealing with the Black experience in America. But he did a variant for issue 3, I think it was. And this is a book that I read that came out the last couple of years. I read it in trade, so I don't have the single issues. I had read the book, enjoyed it, and then when I saw that Jamal was going to be at the show, I saw he did a variant for one of the issues. I had to track it down and find it, and I did. And when I handed it to him, it was like, this is the first time I've ever seen this variant. No one's ever brought this book to me to sign before, so I felt really good about that. When you can track something down for a smaller press publisher, just to say, hey, I found this cover that I thought was really cool that he did, and got him to sign it. So that I really enjoyed that. Also got a bit of scoop from him. I don't know, this is like super, super niche, but a couple of years back, Jamal Igle, along with writer Alex Segura, they worked with NPR's Planet Money to create a comic book. Planet Money did a series on like basically like how things were done and understanding comic properties. And part of their mission at this time was to find a public domain character that they could like get the rights to and make a comic book out of, and they did, and they tracked this process, and it was the character is called the Mysterious Microface, micro-face, because he's got a microphone in front of his face.
Okay.
NPR, Planet Money, podcast, radio, yada yada yada. But they if you can go back and find it, it's a handful of years old now, but it's a great series of the great kind of limited podcast series from Planet Money about the creation of this book, and Jamal was the artist. Alex Segura did the script, and Jamal mentioned to me that they are planning to do another issue of that. That Alex is back on. Planet Money has gotten the go ahead, and Planet Money NPR has. He doesn't think they're going to be documenting it again on podcast format, but they will be. He said there is plans to put out a second issue. So if anyone has the Mysterious Microface, and listen to that Planet Money series on the creation of the comic, another book is coming out, and I'm super excited for it because it was really, really fun. And having listened to the Planet Money series on it and knowing kind of what it took and kind of their process of getting the rights and creating the book, it made it more fun to read when it came out. So that was a good one as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a great conversation with him as well. I get outed as a relatively novice comic reader because I brought him Black #1 to get signed, and I was like, "This is my first book that I ever had of yours," and he was like, "I've been doing it for 40 years," and I was like, "Well, to be fair, I started reading in 2013, so finding this in 2016 or whatever doesn't feel that bad to me."
From your relative time scale, it's it's at the very beginning there, So
right, yeah, no, I was like, I was into Black Mask comics within 3 years of discovering. And I'd started reading because of like Batman and James Bond, like big IPs. But anyway, I enjoyed that. Just, I mean, a great lineup is always, it is always worth the relatively small trek. In fact, someone asked, because I was talking about that, and I kept adding that caveat in conversation. And someone was like, well, like, how far would you drive for what you get out of that show? And I was like, well, I'm a bad person to ask because I hate being in the car and I don't like traveling at all. But I would easily drive twice as far. If it was 3 hours, I would do that without a question.
It's interesting you say that, because I'm also a bad person to ask because I love driving and being in the car. So your answer would be...
Have I ever driven when we carpool, or it's always you, right?
Oh, God.
Always you. Yeah.
Always me. Yeah. So you're a bad person to ask because regardless of what your enjoyment is, you're always going to be on the short end because you don't want to be in the car. And I'm a bad person.
Cincinnati one, I'm like, ugh, like I gotta put my car down.
You gotta go downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am willing to drive.
I live in the city. It's literally 15 minutes at max.
For me, it's like driving 5 hours. Five is tough because it's hard to do that up and back in one day. I've done it before. It's difficult. You usually have to stay overnight somewhere, but easily 4 hours. Like I could drive to Cleveland from here, which is like 3 and change, maybe like 3:45 from where we live. Drive up in the morning, go to a show and come back. Like I could definitely do that. There's a show in Novi, Michigan, just north of the border. That's like about the same as Cleveland, straight north. It's like just under 4 hours. I could definitely do that back in the day. So yeah, for me, around 4 hours driving, totally worth doing for a lineup like this too. Absolutely, for a lineup like this, for something that I can see that there's always going to be the people, right? The big name creators that I've wanted to see at shows and haven't had a chance to yet. The creators that I see at a bunch of shows, but always love to go back to. And then a bunch of new names that I've never seen before and are eager to see and talk to for the first time. So always having that nice mix there. And to be perfectly honest and be fair, it isn't the biggest guest list in terms of number of people, right? It isn't vast, but they still hit all those quadrants. They still find people to fill all those lanes, which I think is really, really great. Do have a fun story as I'm flipping back through my list here. Dave Michelini, who was there signing, he's a co-creator of Venom and Carnage and mostly all the symbiote stuff on Amazing Spider-Man. And anyone who got a book signed by him, he was giving out like a little a convention badge ribbon that says "We Are Venom" on it, because pretty much everyone there was having him sign a book with Venom and or Spider-Man.
Except me, but I'm so out of that world that I didn't even know. So when he handed me a Venom thing, I was like, "What in the world?"
Yeah. And I'm of that group as well. I gave him an issue of Amazing Spider-Man that had Spidey and Venom on the cover. But I also handed him the 2 issues of the Marvel Krull movie adaptation.
Oh yes, I remember we talking about this on the front.
I mentioned about this, yeah. And I handed it to him, and it was very great. I mentioned how much I love the movie, and he, in my reading of what he said, very explicitly and clearly wanted me to know that he wrote his adaptation based off the screenplay not off of the finished movie.
Amazing.
It seemed very clear to me that he wanted to make that obvious and distance himself, which is then unfortunate because I was like, well, listen, man, I love the movie too. So like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like I'm the perfect age to have seen that and been like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. But it was very, very cool to hand him that and a book that I know I'm sure he doesn't get a ton to sign. Because again, when you have Venom and Carnage on your CV, everyone is bringing that to your table. And everyone in line, again, including myself, pretty much had a book like that. But that was a fun interaction. I love when I can get stuff like that, when you can give someone, again, a creator, a book that they don't see very often, or maybe not one that they're not proud of, but one that they're like, oh man, you know, like they have that bit of flashback of like, oh yeah, boy, I remember this one. That's always fun. That leads to fun conversations when you can bring stuff like you said with Pat Broderick, right? When you can bring stuff out of the assumed norm for them. Right. You know, because there are a handful of books that, you know, everyone or the majority of people are going to have. Because I've been that person too. You know, here's the book that everyone knows you from. Well, I have it too because I'm part of everyone. But if I can also bring you something that's a little off the beaten path, a little different, that to me isn't
you
just
can get
some
their
random
eyebrows to raise just a little bit.
Well,
oh.
And again, to me, it's not just some rando book. It is like, I found this thing that you did because I think it's cool. Either I like the issue, or again, like with Jamal Eagle there, like I read this book and I enjoyed this book. I didn't know you had done a variant cover on it. I'm going to buy this one variant cover as, for me, representation of your work, which I enjoy on this cover, but also my enjoyment of this book overall. You know, because I think I found that book digitally and was able to read it. So like, I don't have any physical issues of Ancestral Recall except for that one variant issue. And it's a combination of, here's a book I enjoyed and an artist that I enjoy. So we can combine those things. You know, that's kind of like that's like an ideal for me to try to hit.
Yeah, I usually try to do that too, not at the cost of something that's more meaningful. Like the one that a debate that I always have is like, if I get to go to a show with Mark Russell, for instance, I have Prez #1, but more importantly, Prez #6, which ended up accidentally being the last issue in the series. And I'm like, I would love just hearing him, you know, go on a little diatribe about that book and the process and everything. But like, Traveling to Mars is much more meaningful to me. I'm like, I want to show I've been with you for a while, but also I love your new stuff better than your old stuff, and I love your old stuff. So anyway, that's where I have like 10 issues for a person.
Yeah. And this is, I think, where you and I differ. For me, it's like, I don't actually care about that. All these books matter to me. I'm going to bring them to you, you know? Because to me, it's not just having your signature at all. It's, I want it on these books here because these books all matter to me. Which is probably why I have an exorbitant number of signed comics in my possession.
Just put a number on it. Tell people ballpark, like what's in your spreadsheet for signed books.
1350 plus.
Okay, I was like, mine is considered excessive, and it's a fraction of that.
Yeah. And that doesn't, and that is physical issues. That doesn't include most of the trade paperbacks, a couple of books I have,
posters,
and any issue that has multiple signatures on it. That's just physical issues. Yeah, it's about 1350 plus. But yeah, because to me, it's just like, I want to. What you said there, I want to show appreciation. Like the first time I met Tom King at a show many years ago in Baltimore, I handed him a bunch of books and he looked at them and he was like, "Oh, so this is basically my entire timeline history of comics." Because I basically had an issue of everything he had done. Like, you know, I had his book, A Once Guided Sky.
Vision,
then it was Sheriff, Vision, Omega Men, Batman. It was right after Mr. Miracle had started, so it was like one of everything he had done, because I wanted to be like, hey, I'm a fan of that. And so now there are some artists that have been doing this for 30, 40 years, like you said, Jamal has done that. It's tough to do something like that, but when it's a creator that I have been with, and I don't care how many books it is. Like the first time I saw Jeff Lemire, it was like, I'm sorry, I have 10 things here I would like you to sign. It's a combination of hardcovers, trades, and single issues, but like, please sign these books because they matter to me. So yeah, my limit, you know, I do get, you know, I don't like when people. It can be hypocritical, right? When someone has a big stack of books there and can you please sign these? And like, I understand that if it's just for you. When I get irked, it's when it's clearly like, oh, you're a vendor, you're a reseller, that gets a problem with me. But like, I can get annoyed all I want if someone puts down, here's 25 issues of a Wolverine one. I'd like you to sign all of them for me, please. Like, I can get annoyed at that just personally because I'm standing in line behind the person. But at the same time, I know deep down it's like, bro, I get it, like I get it. That I'm not that much different than you, so I can't get too angry at you. Even if me having to wait here means I'm going to be late for someone else's line, which actually, if I'm being honest, that's where the annoyance comes from. It isn't that you've got 85 books to sign.
Yeah, you're not judging their lifestyle. You're just come on, man.
Because you have 85 books to sign, it's like, why couldn't I have been one person ahead of you instead of one behind you? Because waiting for your books means I'm late for someone else's line, not because, so I'm not angry at you have books to sign. I'm just angry at my relative position to you in line. That's the thing that
I had that. I had that with, who's the chattiest guy in comics? Chris Claremont. I was number 3 in line, and I was kind of like, I just happened to be in there really early, so I got in line because I knew the line was crazy. I'm not like a big X-Men reader. I just had like, I have, God Loves Man Kills, like an original print that's in really rough condition, but
the graphic novel.
This book is meaningful to me. The magazine style.
Yeah, the original one. Yep.
And I was like, like I will never see him again. So I'm going to get in line and do this. And like the second person in line, I'm third person. Not only did he give like a 20-minute diatribe to the first person about something in comics, then the second person wanted a custom sketch, like remark on a blank cover with Wolverine. And while he was drawing that, he kept putting the pen down to talk. And this other person, the books were so meaningful to him that the customer was like crying. And I was like, I don't belong in this line. Like, and why couldn't I have been second instead of third? Because I'm like, I just wanted to say, hey, I appreciate your work. Thank you for this. Please sign it. I'll move on. And he's like, did you ever read, Superman, Wonder Woman, this other thing I did? Because I think you'd really like that if you like this. And I'm like, I'm really not here for comps or pitches or anything. Like, there are so many people here who this means so much more to them. Like, please let me move out of the way.
And that's always the thing too. When someone's in part of being at a con is like, you're allowed your time, but you aren't allowed anyone else's time. And that's a fine line. It's a fine balance to try to understand. And there are plenty of folks that don't understand where that line is. And most times I'm forgiving of that. And a lot of times if I see someone deep in conversation, I got a couple of issues, Hassan, I have sometimes been like, listen, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude. Big fan of your work. I get a couple of signatures here. Is it what, $5-10 or whatever? You guys can keep talking. I don't need to, I don't need to interrupt anything here. But I hate because to me you can come, for me, it feels like sometimes I can come off as being short with the creator. Just be like, oh, I'm just here to get signatures. And I don't care for your time. But part is like, well, I don't want to interrupt.
But in the case I just said, it was 100% the creator's fault.
Yeah.
Claremont, it's like
Claremont wants to talk to everybody.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of times I've been to other places, other creators where they're deep in some conversation with someone, and it's like, I get it. There was no one else in line, so you weren't holding anybody up. I just walked into a conversation, so you don't owe it. You know what I'm saying? It isn't like they're engaged in conversation and there's 9 people behind me in line. There was no one in line. It's just one. They're talking one-on-one, and I walk up, and sometimes you just want to be like, hey, listen, I don't want to interrupt you. I don't want to. Y'all can keep talking. Just appreciate you coming out to the show and get some signatures here, and I can move on. So yeah, it can be tough to do again to thread that needle and find the right balance there sometimes. So.
All right. Well, I think that you and I both did a full zigzag through the entire convention.
We did, yeah.
So just briefly for anyone, still listening that isn't interested in comic creators, which has to be a very small quadrant at this point. I actually thought there were a lot more comic vendors than I expected, because I felt like the number had been kind of waning for a few years. So I was very pleased with that. I did not have the time to do all the digging I wanted, but I found someone that had like 12 boxes of dollar bins because they had just purchased a thing that they didn't feel like going through. Like they had pulled a couple key issues and then were like, it's not worth pricing, like 2,500 issues. Just put them all in a dollar bin and dump them at the show.
Someone finds a deal, they find a deal.
For. Which I wasn't, but I don't look for keys. I'm looking for runs. And I'm like, I grabbed with that, and I'm like, I just had my Comic Geeks out, and I'm like, yeah, there was like a while where I wasn't pulling Detective Comics, and he happened to have like 30 of the 45 issues I need. And, from modern Detective Comics. And it's like, yeah, they're not worth anything. I just want them to read them and be a completionist. So it's just like, man, and cons are the only place I can get that kind of stuff. So I just love it.
I will say though, what you mentioned about maybe having some more vendors there, something that you and I talked about on the show floor was that, and this I don't think it's too much of a demerit on the show, but it felt like the show, it felt like the aisles may have been a little more narrow, slightly more narrow, as if they added like one extra row of booths.
It's interesting that you say
which
that
is a good thing. It means there's more.
What I was
there.
Thinking. And then you said, I think that's just because we normally come first thing Friday and we're here on Saturday. And I was like, oh, that would also make sense of it.
It could also be that because it was incredibly busy, which again, all good things for the show. Saturday is always the busiest day on any show that's a 3-day show across the weekend. But there were a ton of people there. It was very, 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 very busy, very, very crowded. But it felt like there were more things there, more vendors, more booze in general. It's artist alley or it's vendors, things like that. I will say, shows like this, if you're someone out there, like if you're Hot Flips. Like I know there are other shows that go on across the country, around the region. Why there isn't a booth that's selling top loaders of all sizes right next to Artist Alley at every single comic convention, I'll never understand that. Again, that's not on the show, but like if there are vendors out there and you sell Hot Flips and you sell top loaders, man, bro, we had a hard time trying to find top loaders. For some prints and some arts at the show, that if you're a vendor and you have that inventory, it seems like a layup at a show. Just have it there and be positioned right next to Artist Alley.
So many. Oh yes. It seems like a no-brainer to me, but
again, not on the show, but just in general
to transport. Which is why I own 10 of them and I don't bring them with me because they're annoying to transport. By the way, I guess we should say LexCon broke a long-standing record for you, which is you have never purchased original art before.
I'm not an original art person. I did. When I buy art from creators, it's I buy prints. So original art, it never has interested me before. It is interesting for me to look at. I enjoy seeing the process, like when that stuff's included, like in back matter and stuff like that. But owning a piece of original art has never been something I ever wanted. But as we were talking with Matthew Roberts, and having as we're recording this here, having just finished talking about his book with Chris Dingus, Manifest Destiny, flipping through the stuff he had there, it was reasonably priced, and there's a page that made sense for me out of that book to have, and so you know what, he was such a great guest to talk to. We enjoyed that book. I felt compelled to pull the trigger on that. So I do not think that'll be a rabbit hole I go down, because quite frankly, the bank account won't allow for that, given the other hobbies that I have. But if I'm going to own one piece of original comic art, I am glad it is that one. Because it works for me, so I'll leave it at that. So I don't think, again, not something I'll be doing more of going forward. But if I'm going to have one piece, I'm glad it's that one.
Yeah, I grabbed one as well. Not as uncommon for me, although I had the the wall space problem eventually of buying like original art, and it's just like, well, what's the
Oh
point of
no,
buying it if you don't have the space to display it?
oh no, I'm at zero wall space like already. Like I'm at negative wall space. I have stuff that's not on the walls. So yeah, no, it I'm so far down the road past that problem that it's no longer a concern of, well, if I buy it, where am I going to put it? Well, no. There's nowhere to put it. So if you want to have it, just buy it. And that's what I did with that art. Although the original art will if I got to move some stuff around, if I got to replace something in a position somewhere, that'll be worth it.
Yeah, you rotate them, right? And
Yeah.
I think I like pro tip for anyone listening who goes to cons and collects original like prints, limited run prints that are signed and things like that. Once you run out of poster space on your wall, which most people would be pretty soon, the portfolios that they display them in are for sale for like $15 on Amazon, and you can buy one of those. And now I have a big binder, and I can sit down and look at all of the signed prints and everything and original art in there, and it's awesome.
And that's something that I need to do. And that
Then you get yourself a
maybe
label
seems like
maker, and you label like, here's the issue, page number, con I purchased it at. It's very cool.
and yeah, I'm in the process of relabeling all of my signed comics, which, as aforementioned, is over 1,300. But that kind of portfolio thing would be awesome. But then if I did that, I would have all of these unused frames if I took them off the
Right.
walls, because that would be a much better way to display things. But now that you said that, probably when we're done with this recording, I'll end up looking and probably end up buying a couple of those, and then that'll be what I do as the next project. So,
Oh, but all my frames are like
so
2
thank
or
you for
3
that, Mike.
deep. Like I pull them down and rotate them every once in a while because they've all got multiple posters in them. And
Oh no,
like
I don't.
that's why I went to it. It's like I've been out of wall space for a long time, but I can't stop buying awesome art when I find it, which I guess is the very nature of going to.
I can't rotate. That's
Comic-Cons.
that's everyone's got their own. But that would be a good way to do things.
I
That would
could
be a
hear
good
the
way.
judgment coming, and then I heard the restraint.
I know.
So
It's like
I'm proud of you.
multiple
Yeah.
prints in a frame. That's ridiculous. So
Well,
anyway,
it's like there was no other
anyway.
place to store them other than a top
That's
loader.
true.
But anyway,
That's true.
Last thing we want to touch on is like shocking news to me, but in a
Me as well.
exclusively positive way. I have never heard of anyone doing this. LexCon is doing another con this year.
I have heard of that. I haven't heard Lexington do it before.
I've never
the
even
fact
heard of
that
it. I like it never even occurred to me that you would do 2 in a year. But
Yeah,
now that
so
it's like as soon as I heard it, I was like, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Like
And so yeah, they announced I guess just after the show wrapped, they're gonna have a fall convention in early September, September 4th through 6th. Tickets on sale very, very soon here in April. But yeah, the idea of them like kind of a regional show like this having a second show in a year, 5 months after the last one, or I guess be 6 months after the end of the previous show, pretty much. Yeah, that's crazy. Like there have been some shows like the bigger shows like a MegaCon or something like that. They can handle that kind of traffic, I guess. So much of what it comes down to is talent availability. How do you get people to come to the show? Who's available at that time? What other shows are going on in the time frame that weekend? As of right now, that weekend, looking at kind of the overall con schedule for the US, I don't see any major shows. And so I think there's some larger shows maybe the week after. So if people are on kind of the fall circuit, which it happens, people, the creators go on, if you follow creators and you'll see, they're going to a bunch of shows. They're like, they're doing like 5 shows in the next 3 months, that kind of thing, where they kind of go on a circuit and hit a bunch of them and do these kind of mini trips. If they catch people on kind of a fall trip there, it could be really cool. And the fact that they're doing another show, that they feel confident enough to do another show. Now, obviously, they haven't announced anything about it yet, other than it's happening. So we don't know if it'll have a different kind of focus to it. So much of their celebrity work, which you and I are not the biggest into, but one thing that that LexCon does, and a lot of shows do, is they try to bring in related groups of celebrities. So for panels and photo ops and things like that. So it isn't just a random collection of things. You'll get like the people from Psych or from Superman and Lois or something like that. They'll try to bring casts together that are related and make sense. So I wonder if they have something in mind for the fall, if they already have things in the works. I'd imagine they'd have to, right?
Yes.
Just to announce blind and not have some sort of plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. As to when they announce things, I don't know. I'll be keeping an eye on it all the way through. But
I think they're probably still coasting on the pictures, videos, photo drop, like all the stuff from the last one, and you don't want to cut that off early, right?
Yeah, but you announce it now, so folks it's in the front of mind. So that scheduling makes total sense. Again, I just wonder where they are in the actual planning and signing of contracts and things. But yeah, that blew me away. Right before we started recording this, just going back to the site to remind myself of kind of some of the guest lists and seeing that it had a show in 6 months. So that's crazy. So we may be talking about this again in 6 months, for part deux of Lexington 2026.
I like sign me up. I saw it's September 4th. Trick is you're getting into college football season, which makes those cons trickier for me. But as long as there's a Friday afternoon option.
Yeah, but you don't have to worry about that. Not with your school. You don't being with you.
That's true. Well, no, I watch out of spite now.
That's true.
Yeah, like what would fuel my anger?
Yeah.
The Reds might not be mathematically eliminated by September 4th, which means something in sports has to be disappointing me at all times. Otherwise, am I even a Cincinnatian?
But that is true, though. We going down there, this is in Rupp Arena. So, just from a sports standpoint, it is before the start of college basketball and before the start of college basketball, like training camp in school down there. So if they're going to do one in the fall, this is just about the latest they could do it. Because once you start getting into October, you're getting towards the end of con season. And then, for Lexington, Rupp Arena is overtaken by UK basketball. So if they're going to have this kind of 6 month spacing, it works out there because at the beginning of September, that's like got to be the end limit of when other things would be occupying the space on a regular basis. So I'm really excited, man, to see what they do and how they can pull off 2 shows in a year and see what they're capable of. Because I think we talked about in the preview a couple weeks ago, over the handful of years, the last couple of years that we've been going, the show's been getting bigger.
Right.
It's just been growing.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they feel confident enough to do a second show, even if it is, and we know nothing about this, but what if it is a focus that is maybe away from comics specifically? Maybe it's more like anime and gaming or something like that. That wouldn't be great for us personally, but it'd be good for them. Again, if they feel that they are in a position where they can put a show on like that can cater for that crowd and that audience, that'd be great for them. Again, it would be sad for us because that's not something that you and I are super interested in. But if the brand name of the con can support that, all the more good.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I love about seemingly the industry of conventions is there's not a scarcity mentality. There's not like Lexington does a con, and that's only 90 miles away, so there's no market for a Cincinnati con. It's like, no. Like, people who go to cons go to as many as they can reasonably get to.
Yes. Yeah.
So and someone crushing it only helps the industry and helps every other con. So there's also the idea of just because Lexington is 90 minutes away from Cincinnati, not everyone is willing to or is able to make that trip. I know you and I, we can pass it out and be like, yeah, that's nothing. We'll drive down there and drive back. But that is not the case for everybody else, for a large swath of people. People in Lexington who come to this show maybe can't get to Cincinnati for the Comic Expo or get over to even like Louisville or whatnot. That isn't always an option. And so, yeah, the idea of, well, it's within a 2-hour radius of these other cities. We only need the one con to service all these people. Like, that just ain't it. And so, yeah, if you have these shows and there are the crazy sickos like myself who go to
any show that's within 5 hours of where I live, but just being able to service a fan base, a group of people, an area, and say, here's a show for you, and we're going to put on, it's going to be darn good. So you don't have to go anywhere. Said all that stuff is good. And if they're in a position where they can support these shows year after year, and they're not just like massive money holes, again, that's good overall for the industry, I think.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, thank you to LexCon for one great con already this year. Can't wait to see what they come up with. My pipe dream, I'm reluctant to say it out loud because I don't want to ruin it. My pipe dream would be that we get the makeup session with the All Reds in September.
I didn't want to say that. Yeah. And, yeah. I'm with you.
Honestly, if that were announced next week, I would buy my ticket knowing nothing else about the show. If it was worth it. If it was Rupp Arena with the All Reds, I would be like, all right, I'll get in line.
They were enough to guarantee I'd be at the show for the spring. And you're right. If that were part of the announcement that they would be able to make it or be on the schedule for the fall, 100% be right there with you.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, and we will hopefully see you 2 days from now for our interview with Matthew Roberts from LexCon. Otherwise, we'll see you the week after that to set up our next comic book discussion, and possibly we will see you in person at another LexCon in 2026. Just gonna have to update the labels on my comics that I have signed now because I have them printed as LexCon 26, and it might be LexCon 26 A and B now or something like that. But
we have the dates on mine too.
Yeah, I have the dates. I guess I have the dates.
I have the full dates. Yeah, but it'll be a challenge. But hopefully a good one to have.
Yes. All right. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.
Peace.